Hello everyone and welcome. Today we will examine the so-called peace agreement between Armenia and Azerbaijan, a deal widely presented as progress but seen by many as a real threat to Armenia's sovereignty and security. Today my guest is the co-founder and director of the Armenian Center for American Studies, political analyst Suren Sargsyan. Mr. Sargsyan, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting.
Mr. Sargsyan, the Armenia-Azerbaijan declaration is positioning the United States as a key power broker in the South Caucasus. Since Turkey acts as a proxy for the US in the region, does this agreement in effect expand Turkey's role?
Well, the answer actually is, if we want to get the answer, we have to look at the history. And when we look at the history, we will see that starting from 1991, since the collapse of the USSR, the United States were trying to sort of be involved in this region, because the region is very important, not if not strategically, because in any US national security strategy, you cannot find a mention of South Caucasus as a strategically important region for the United States. But when you look at the region, South Caucasus region is the neighbor for Russia, is neighbor of Turkey, and neighbor of Iran, which means that the United States is very much interested in this region, as a whole region, not separately with the countries, but as a region itself. That is why the regional understanding, the regional foreign policy of Washington towards the South Caucasus is very important. And of course, in this region, the main problem for the US is Tehran, and the main problem for the US is Moscow. At the same time, the only ally, well, problematic ally, but still an ally, is Ankara. That is why, starting from 91, the US were trying to sort of bring together Turkey and Armenia, to normalize relations between Turkey and Armenia and solve the Nagorno-Karabakh issue. And if we again look at the history, we will see that in 1994, the first president of Armenia, Petrosyan, was invited to the White House because his approach towards the normalization of Armenian-Turkish relations, as well as Armenian-Azerbaijani relations, were, received very well by Clinton administration, and he was received in the White House. The second wave was during the second president's 10 years, when in 2001, you may recall the meeting of the Armenian president with Azerbaijani president in the White House, I mean in the Key West, first in the Key West with Foreign Secretary Powell, and then they went to Washington, D.C. having a meeting with President Bush. This means that the US saw an opportunity to solve this problem, one of these two problems, Armenian-Turkish or Armenian-Azerbaijani problems, and they were like very actively involved in the process. And the third wave was during the third president's, Suren Sargsyan's term. You may recall the football diplomacy when Turkey and Armenia were negotiating. All these processes failed, but at the same time we have to mention that the Washington D.C. was trying to be involved as much as possible. And the fourth wave is right now, when Armenia is ready to give whatever they want, both parties, Azerbaijan and Turkey. And of course, there's an opportunity for the great powers to solve these problems and to change the whole geopolitics of this region. So the short answer is this, probably. We can talk about it longer, we can talk about other issues too, but I want to also to mention that in political scientists in the United States are still thinking that the solution of regional problems are helping to limit Russia's influence in the region. This is a belief in political circles, in scientific circles, in academic circles. So this is the approach that we see from Washington, D.C. within the last 30 years. That is why the US is very active in this region right now, and it was mediating the Armenian-Azerbaijani process, mediating the Armenian-Turkish process, and most probably even now, Washington still has a role in mediating Armenian and Turkish relations.
Mr. Sargsyan, does the so-called Trump route create conflicts of interest, aligning Turkey and Azerbaijan on one side and Russia and Iran on the other? And by expanding its presence in the region, is Washington risking a new clash with Moscow?
We know the position of Iran. First of all, we know that Iran was calling the existence of the route or the corridor itself as a threat to its national security. We've heard it from many officials on different levels for the last 4 or 5 years. And we've heard that this is the red line for Tehran. But now we see a process that, first of all, we have corridor, as Trump is calling it a corridor, 3 times at least during the ceremony of signing this statement. And also we see that there will be an American involvement here. But Tehran is, I wouldn't say they're not saying anything, but still they're not very harsh on this issue. Maybe we'll see more statements coming up soon, but they're not they don't give very strong statements about it. The same with Moscow. Statements are not very tough, are not very strong, but still there are some statements coming from Moscow. So of course we see a process where Iran and Moscow are from one side, and Ankara, Baku, and Washington are on the other side, and of course Armenia too. What kind of clashes this could be it's really very hard to say at this moment, because Russia is still busy with Ukraine, Iran is still busy with own problems in the Middle East. So that is why they're still busy with their own problems, and they don't have enough resources. Most probably they don't have enough resources to use them in the South Caucasus region, at least at this point.
Mr. Sargsyan, Pashinyan praises this declaration as success, yet Aliyev says that key issues remain unresolved, that pushes on for more concessions. And as you already mentioned, this declaration in its current form carries no real weight, and Pashinyan's approach leaves Armenia on a path of endless concessions. So what's next thing?
Well, we know that Armenia is ready to give whatever they want. I mean, Armenia is giving whatever Azerbaijan wants, and Armenia is giving whatever Turkey wants. From one side, it's removing of the Ararat Mount from our coat of arms, from other places. This is one of the concessions. And of course, also, there is Azerbaijani demand and Turkish demand to do some amendments in our constitution to remove some parts of it, some articles of it. So Armenia is ready to do that too. So we can say that Yerevan officially is giving whatever Turkey wants and giving whatever Azerbaijan wants, and doesn't receive anything yet. And this is just a statement that they signed in Washington, D.C. It's just a statement. It's not a document. It's not a legal document. It doesn't have any binding legal force, which means that it's just a statement, as much statement, written statement, and as much statement as it was after the signing of these statements. So the statements coming after that are equal to this statement. And you remember that after this signing of these statements, Trump 3 times mentioned that it's a corridor. He used the term corridor 3 times, and Armenian representative who was sitting next to him didn't even say, this is not a corridor, don't use that term, we prefer route, road, whatever. But he didn't say anything about it.
The Armenian government continues to perform this verbal gymnastics, as you already mentioned, to mislead the public, actually, and avoid admitting that Armenia is effectively surrendering sovereignty over Sunnic region. If a third party is set to control how the route operates and even how conflicts are resolved, then is a real question whether the Trump route strips Armenia of security guarantees altogether.
This is a very hard question to answer, because we have more questions than answers here. We have many questions about this statement. We have many questions about the documents that can be signed between 2 parties or third parties if the United States is going to be a part of it, because the President of the United States signed this statement as a witness. He was not a part of the deal. It's not a deal yet. It's just the first steps, but it's not a deal yet. And he's just a person who is witnessing the process. He's not party to this process, which is very
Diminish the
important.
importance of the document.
It's still is not a document, but yes, because he's just a witness. He says, "Okay, you two sign here. I'll be the witness." So basically, we still have the statement and nothing binding in that statement as long as it's not signed as an international treaty or a document or whatever it is.
As you already mentioned, that in addition to Azerbaijan's demand, Turkey is openly pressuring Armenia for additional concessions. Concessions have already been made, including dropping all the references and demands for recognitions of the Armenian genocide, removing official visits to Tsitsernakaberd, and erasing Mount Ararat from stamps. How do you think, will there be any additional concessions, demands from Turkey?
Of course, I think this demands will still be there because starting from 1991, Turkey had a lot of demands towards Armenia. And it was not only about recognition of its territorial integrity, it was not about only removing Ararat from its coat of arms. Also, they wanted to have removed all the anti-Turkish propaganda, anti-Turkish statements, anti-Turkish anything anti-Turkish from the society, which is like very hard to do because some people are still criticizing Turkey for a lot of things, starting from the Armenian genocide, not recognizing the Armenian genocide, etc. So demands can come as much as they want. I mean, there can be a lot of demands, more demands, and if Armenia is ready to satisfy all the demands, that means that Armenia is ready to give Turkey whatever he wants. And more you give, more they want. And of course, in the future, we will see, most probably we'll see much more from Turkey and much more concessions from Armenia.
Mr. Sargsyan, and one last question. What are the major missteps and errors made by the Armenian government that had brought to the point where it appears stripped of all the ability to defend its own interests?
Well, this is a really very
long list.
It's a huge list, I would say. But everything started from the beginning, from 2018, right from the revolution. First, the government failed negotiations over Artsakh. Then they failed the war. Then they failed negotiations again. Then again, what happened to Artsakh in 2022 when people just left Artsakh. So it's a huge list of the missteps. And moreover, I think Armenia is also creating a very, very fragile situation around itself. We'll try to imagine we have Russian military base in Armenia. We have on the border with Iran, we will have this route with American semi-military company or whatever you call it to ensure the security of the route, the security of the products that must be transferred through that route, and just 1 kilometer away, Iranian border. So this is going to be a very tough situation because when you look at Syria, let's say, you will see that there is Russian presence, Iranian presence, Israeli presence, etc., etc. So you're in the middle of this kind of situation, which is very dangerous for Armenia, which is very dangerous for the security because you never know what kind of problems these countries can have between them. And what will be the platform that they will use to solve their problems. And these countries will definitely have problems. Russia will definitely have problems with the United States because these are two superpowers always contradicting each other. Iran will have problems with the United States, definitely. We have Turkey here that will definitely have problems with both Iran and Moscow. If you look at the history, we will see that there has been a lot of wars between Iran and Turkey, a lot of wars between Turkey and Russia, 16, 15 wars. I mean, this is the situation that we have, and Armenia is in the middle of this whole process. This is sort of a geopolitical clash, place of a geopolitical clash for superpowers and regional powers. This is the most dangerous thing that was created by Armenian leadership within the last, let's say, 8 years.
Overall, is there any prototype or a precedent of this type of route? And what are the international mechanisms to regulate it?
There are this kind of routes and there are this kind of corridors or roads or whatever. And there are American military or semi-military organizations that are sort of protecting these roads, these pipelines, etc. So there are some routes of that kind. And for example, in Middle Eastern countries, in some countries, American militaries are protecting their own interests, their interests of gas pipelines or other pipelines. We know about this kind of routes. But we don't know if our route or corridor, whatever it is, how effective it's going to be, because again, we have many questions and we are not able to get answers to those questions from our authorities, which is a big problem because we are receiving more information from other parties rather than Armenian authorities. We figured out that something is going to be signed in Washington, D.C., not from our authorities, not from Armenian government, but from an Azerbaijani journalist who is working at the State Department. I mean, he's covering State Department. So these kind of things are coming to prove that Armenian government is not working effectively with its own people, and doing things without letting own people know about those things, which is a big problem.
Thank you so much for the interview.
Thank you.
Let me remind you that my guest today was the co-founder and director of the Armenian Center for American Studies, Suren Sargsyan.